Jack laid his bony skull to rest upon his pillow and turned to look at Countess Leslie, while the latter showed a mixed expression of fear and sorrow.
My Grace, my love, what do you remember?
Leslie tentatively asked, with a soft voice. Jack looked away from Leslie's face and stared at the ceiling, tracing the bonework patterns with this sight. He sighed in his mind.
I don't know anything.
Jack spoke aloud, still with his heroic voice, though it sounded a bit better than his earlier attempts. Countess Leslie edged to the front of her seat.
Do you remember me?
She asked, while her eyes looked away from her love. Jack looked back over to Leslie at the time she looked away. He may not have had much contact with people in his last life, but he had played, read, and watched enough to know what this voice and expression meant. Jack wanted to tell the truth, but he just didn't want to see this beauty hurt. He knew the truth would hurt her. At this point, Jack wondered if they were a couple, married.
How could I forget your most beautiful face?
Jack spoke while looking at the expression of Leslie, looking to see how it would change. Jack always wanted a female companion. He didn't care if he married or even had a girlfriend, but at least a female friend would be nice. Leslie let out a sigh from her vestigial lung. She was happy, the happiest she had been for a long time, but then she was thinking about what her Grace had forgotten.
What does my Grace remember?
Leslie asked probingly. Jack felt pressured. He had no idea how to comment. He was unsure if these people would accept that he wasn't who they thought he was. What if, when they found out, they burned his bones and scattered his ashes? Would he become a ghost? Die again? Re-die? Alive? Jack had no idea but didn't want to find out.
I remember only you,
Jack said firmly. This was the best sentence Jack had said on his own since that weird episode when he saw the Grand Minister's hat. Leslie bloomed into a gorgeous smile. She didn't know why her Grace was showering her with affection today, but she wasn't willing to bring herself to question this. The more pressing matter was that the kingdom was in trouble, and the Holy Witch King had amnesia. How was he going to solve the impending wars?
Leslie. What are we?
Jack asked. Leslie would have blushed if blood was still a thing in her veins. Her Grace had never called her only by name. Only the most intimate of partners would call each other by their first name only. To date, she didn't even know her Grace's name. No one did. He was only his Grace or the Holy Witch King. Anyone that did either received a true death or never spoke of it.
We are nobles, my dear.
Leslie once again probed with her sentiment, hoping that it would gain silent approval. She felt very bold today. Maybe if he only remembered her, then she could gain a piece of his heart before it sealed itself away.
No, I know we are noble, but we are undead, dead, something else.
Jack searched for a way to ask this question without sounding stupider than he already did. What kind of joke was this? The Holy Witch King asking what are undead? Any undead that heard this wouldn't believe it, and the one that told them would more than likely have their soul pulled from their body and kept in a glass jar like a firefly to light the zombie latrine. Leslie sighed for the second time. Today, only her Grace could do this to her.
Yes, we are undead, but we of the Holy Kingdom of Dagoth are more than just undead. We are wholly undead.
Leslie proudly stated.
Wholly undead. Hence holy water, but why, seriously? Tell me why holy? All the games I played showed undead died from holy power and were dark and evil creatures.
Jack mentally puzzled along, not really understanding. Leslie watched her Grace, who showed no emotion. After a few minutes, she proceeded to further explain.
Unlike our other undead kin, we Wholly Undead are granted the power of the Holy Light. Our faith so strong in the light that we may wield its awesome power in undeath?
But doesn't the holy light hurt us as well?
Jack articulated a perfect question.
Well, yes. It is the price we pay because of what we are. Undead, but with the power it grants us and the faith that fuels us, we are mighty.
Leslie patiently continued.
Ah, I see. So we are no different than the nations of my previous life.
Jack thought, as he remembered that nuclear weapons could hurt everyone, but it was the price nations paid to have the biggest stick.
Leslie, I think I have lost my connection to the holy light.
Jack cautiously said, monitoring Leslie's next expression. Leslie's vision went slightly dark. It had been a long time since she had felt so many different emotions in one day.
Fire Wholly Undead, how?
Leslie's inner monologue began.
Hey! When my grace channeled the holy light that year and destroyed our enemies, it must have broken something. Did it damage his undead soul? My grace. Do you remember your last battle? The Battle of Femur's Reach?
Countess Leslie asked bitterly.
No, tell me what happened.
Jack's voice became stronger.
It was the year 787 of our underworld, and to the southeast of our holy kingdom of Daegoth, the armies of both the kingdom of Jakon and the grand tomb of Neolith were marching upon us, like the other countries, casting their greedy and envious gaze upon our skull of the sun god.
Leslie began her narration. Jack quietly listened while looking back at the ceiling, trying to figure out how to close his eyes. Or turn off his vision, honestly.
With our mighty forces keeping both the nation of Borda and the Republic of Stonge at bay, it was then that the combined strength of both Jakon and Neolith decided to sneak us to our final graves.
Leslie started to build up the excitement. Jack continued to tinker with his mind and body about eyesight while listening.
Little did Jakon and Neolith know that my grace had seen through their passive stance and secret negotiations. My grace stood with a modest army of 1,400 wholly dead Templars to face the 5 armies of their alliance.
At this point, Jack finally figured out how to stop seeing. The trick was simply to stop trying to see. He laid to what he assumed, comfortably listening to this dark fairy tale, with so many made-up names.
With my grace's most holy of hymns, you called down the angel of death.
Leslie actually stood up while making a power stance.
The Angel of Death? The Grim Reaper? That's a thing?
Jack thought within his mind and continued to cast doubt upon this story.
With my grace's last holy word, from the twilight of the sky ripped open a blinding light, and emerged from within the light was the angel of death, glorious and holy, skeletal like my grace with a golden halo wreathed upon his brow. In one swipe, the angel's scythe reaped all the enemies of our holy kingdom in that battle.
Leslie's face had the same look as those of V models that Jack used to watch.
Is she getting off on this?
Jack's mind was clearly not holy.
As the scythe descended and the flames of holy wrath enveloped the battlefield, the hymns of the holy dead were heard, and it has been reported that as far away as the Abyssal's people seen the angel of death descend.
Leslie looked down at her grace and continued.
My dear doesn't know, but Femur's Reach has been renamed since that battle. To Angel's Decent.
So this guy used an ultimate move. What a crazed spell. Hacks. I don't know how big 5 armies is, but having a modest army is only 1,400. I need to call a GM.
Jack couldn't help himself from memeing it up. He spent so much time on 7chan in his last life. Perhaps this is why he became undead. You cannot kill which has no life, right?
My dear, you commanded us to place you into your eternal tomb and left detailed instructions to raise you from your long sleep if the worst came to pass. So it has come to pass, and we called forth to you again.
These instructions, what were they?
Jack asked, opening his vision again and looking at Leslie.
You asked us to use a specific ritual to awake you, and then take you to your study, and once you had your personal affairs in order to open your throne to court.
Leslie gave a point by point, as if memorized. She knew the hymn they sang to awaking her grace, but she had no idea what it really did. Blind loyalty, perhaps blind love.
My study.
Jack spoke aloud.
Let me rest a bit. Then I wish to visit my study.
Jack said resolutely.
Yes, my dear?
Leslie was about to faint. Her grace never stopped her from calling him dear. She had once tried this many years ago. So long ago, he stopped her, but never said why. This left Leslie at the time very heartbroken, but she picked herself up and kept trying her best.
Can I keep you company while you rest?
Of course.
Jack spoke unconsciously. Leslie sat down and stared dumbly at her grace. Jack would feel uncomfortable at this, but he simply looked back at the ceiling and turned off his vision.
Did the last guy plan all this?
Jack had a scary thought come to mind. End of chapter 3.